regulation by enforcement is not serving the Vice President Harris's interest right now, and that's again part of our letter signed by 14 House Democrats in Congress and some other candidates and other elected officials saying we want to have someone who's not going to be hostile to the industry at the SEC.
This content is brought to you by VeChain, which is a leading enterprise-grade Layer 1 public blockchain spearheading a digital revolution from a sustainable, highly scalable smart contract platform. The VeChain blockchain has many unique features, which makes it an ideal choice for Web3 applications. VeChain is working with many great enterprises such as PwC, Givenchy, BMW, and Walmart China. Most recently, they partnered with the Boston Consulting Group to build a revolutionary decentralized application ecosystem. I'm a big believer in this project. I have been since 2018. I've been a VET token holder for years. And this blockchain is highly scalable, great with security and speed, and it has low energy consumption. If you'd like to learn more about VeChain, please visit vchain.org. Link will be in the description. Welcome into the Thinking Crypto podcast. I'm your host, Tony Edward, and with me is Congressman Wiley Nickel, who's a Democrat out of North Carolina. Congressman, great to see you.
Hey, it's great to be with you.
Congressman, you attended the Bitcoin conference this past weekend in Nashville, Tennessee. How was it? How was the experience?
I mean, it was the first time I'd been there. Nashville is a wonderful place to be. I did not know it was the bachelorette party capital of the world, and I could see why firsthand. But great get together and some really good policy conversations, and continuing to make the progressive case for crypto, and talking about why it's so important to keep this as a bipartisan issue.
Absolutely. And I have to give you credit, as well as Congressman Ro Khanna. You both attended. And I know, in politics, people try to divide because they want to get votes and so forth. But I appreciate you, like you said, saying this is a bipartisan issue and both sides need to come together to get proper legislation. Now, I did see that you and I believe Congressman Ro Khanna and a bunch of your Democrat colleagues sent a letter to the DNC about crypto. Tell us a bit about that.
We did. We sent a letter asking for friendly policies for Web3, crypto, blockchain. So that was important. I think we need to have good statements as part of the party platform on crypto. We need to have a new SEC. The next SEC commissioner needs to be someone who is industry, is not hostile to the industry. Those were some of the bigger points we made, but I'm pushing in a big way for a reset, because I think the Gary Gensler approach at the SEC has been out of step with the rest of the Biden administration, and it's not serving Vice President Harris well in her campaign. So we're working to get that reset with the Harris campaign now, and I'm hopeful we will, because I think she understands the amazing potential of this technology to help folks in a major way, and so far the behind the scenes conversations have been great, and we'll hopefully have some news in the coming days.
Oh, so that was going to be my next question. When can we anticipate some sort of messaging from Kamala Harris on this? So it sounds like something this week.
Well, I'm not sure when, but we're working behind the scenes to get it done. I've had some high level conversations about my suggestions for a good, sensible, moderate approach on the issue, and they've been receptive. In fairness, though, a week ago, just over a week ago today, Joe Biden was 100% running for president. A lot's happened in the last week, so they've had a lot going on. But the initial response has been really positive, and I think they understand why it's important to put forward a good reset on the issue, and make a pitch for the 20% of registered voters who own crypto.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad to hear that things are going positive from a conversation standpoint. I did have a question though regarding SEC Chair Gary Gensler. Look, I think whether you're Democrat or Republican, people are not happy with Gary Gensler, as you mentioned. Um, can Kamala Harris or President Biden, who's the current Senate president, replace Gary Gensler now, or do you think it's when Kamala Harris becomes president, if she's elected, that then that change would happen?
Well, his term goes until 2026.
Hmm.
So, it's difficult to remove someone before that. But I can tell you that, and I feel pretty confident that he would not get another term as SEC chair. But Trump. I don't think Trump, by the way, knows who Gary Gensler is. But the biggest applause line he had was when he said he was going to get rid of Gary Gensler. He said it twice just to make the point, because he got such a, he was like, what? And I think he said something like, who is this guy? Regulation by enforcement is not serving the Vice President Harris's interest right now. We continue to make that case, but and there's been some good things too. We got a Bitcoin and an Ether ETF from the SEC. That's positive. But they still have a lot more work to do. And that's, again, part of our letter signed by 14 House Democrats in Congress and some other candidates and other elected officials saying, we want to have someone who's not going to be hostile to the industry at the SEC.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of the activity or hostility has been unlawful, like as called out by the court. So definitely a change is needed there. Now, with regards to well, staying on topic with the SEC, the SOB 121 situation. I know that that ultimately got vetoed by President Biden, but is there anything else that could be done there? It was repealed in the House and the Senate, but anything else that could be done there?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We're that one. We have the best banks in the world. They ought to be able to. They are the best at taking custody of assets. It's safest there. It's a real concentration of risk problem if all these digital assets are housed in one non-bank. So what we're doing is pushing in Congress to get rid of that staff accounting bulletin. We have two places where we're working to get it done this year. I think, one way or another, we're going to get it done in the Congress, either through the budget or with separate legislation, which I've, co-sponsored as well, that would do that. So I think for folks who are concerned about custodial banking and this overreach, banking is out of the SEC's lane, by the way, but we've got a legislative fix either through the budget and appropriations process or as a standalone bill. Very good bipartisan group of folks that are behind that, and and for Democrats, it's hard to vote to override a veto for a sitting president. We had, I co-sponsored the bill, and which is rare for a Democrat to do against a sitting president. We had 21 Democrats on the veto override, but on the policy, most of my Democratic colleagues agreed with us. It's just the mechanism is a very partisan one. But as we do it as a bill or as part of the budget appropriation process, I think we'll have a much bigger bipartisan group of folks on that issue.
Congressman, I hope you don't mind me asking, and I appreciate you and your Democratic colleagues who voted against this and have been working towards legislation. But do you think it wasn't so much a President Biden issue with this veto, but more of Elizabeth Warren?
Well, I can just say that the SEC is really out of step with the rest of the administration. The CFTC, they're I think doing a great job. You have a lot of other voices in the administration, and unfortunately, it's just one that's gotten so much attention with Gary Gensler. But I'm optimistic. What I want, though, for folks who are focused on this issue is good policy statements from Vice President Harris. And now she is approaching this issue in her own right. And that's what we want to see. That's what I want to see. And I'm going to continue making that case. I'm hopeful that we'll see. Don't tell me about it. I want to see it in writing, and I think we will.
Awesome. Follow-up question on, well, actually not follow-up. It's actually different. FIT21. Any updates there on when that bill may make it to the Senate? And I know it's election cycle, so it's crazy. Is this a 2024 thing or a 2025 thing?
I think it's a 2024 thing. We're continuing to work as hard as we can to get it done. As you know, FIT21 passed the House with 71 Democrats, including folks like Speaker Nancy Pelosi. So there's a bipartisan coalition that wants to get it done. The Senate, has to act, and they've got the balls in their court this week. I'm hopeful that we'll get something done in the Senate. But one way or another, we've got a lot more time this year, before and after the election to get that done. We've all worked so hard on it. So I'm hopeful that, we'll get those, that basic regulation for the industry, those rules of the road, those consumer protections that are a big part of FIT21. And again, if you step back, Tony, this Congress has been one of the least productive Congresses in our nation's history. The only thing we've been able to do in a bipartisan way is must pass bills like the debt ceiling, the budget, supporting and standing with our friends and allies in Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan. But we had to do those things. FIT21 could be the biggest policy victory we have in a bipartisan way. And that's been my focus, in making sure we keep it that way. We work together, and any policy, changes we make in a bipartisan way are going to stay for a long, long time. If it's all one party, you're going to have this yo-yo back and forth. And that's not good for anybody. It's certainly not good for the industry. If we politicize this issue, I think it sets back, Web3 a decade in the US. And then those jobs just go overseas.
Absolutely. And what are your thoughts on how much money the crypto industry has raised? I think the fair shake is now $200 million. It seems crypto is this political force this election cycle.
Yeah, I mean, whenever you have people who are focused on an issue, you're going to get more political support. And I think what's worth pointing out, is related to that is the number of registered voters who own crypto. And the data I've seen says, 20%. That's a huge number. Talking about some 50 million Americans, but you dig further down there, and I think you've got over a million single issue voters who are just going to vote. They're evenly split between Democrats and Republicans, but they are going to, evenly vote. They're going to vote on this issue, and they're going to look for the candidate with the best positions to continue to, keep digital innovation here in the United States. And that's changed. That's very different than it was 4 years ago and 8 years ago. So I'm trying to make sure folks, in Washington understand that, you can't think about this issue the way you did, 5 years, 10 years ago. It's a very, things are moving quickly, and we want to stay ahead of the curve. And it's just amazing to me to think like you would have people, in the 90s who were against the internet, and that's we're going to look back in 10 years and be like, why were you against digital innovation? Why were you against Web3? So that's the case I'm making. And I think we're getting some good progress on our side, which, by the way, with FIT21, 71 Democrats, that's a big deal to get that many folks behind us on this issue.
Yeah, I was actually very blown away by that number. I did not expect that, and I'm obviously pleasantly surprised. But 71, it's a lot of people are thinking, oh, we'll probably get 20 Democrats, something, and I was like, wow, 71, that's pretty great.
It sends a big message, and that's what I continue to keep trying to push. Is that we need to educate folks on the issue in Congress. That's really anybody who's listening to your podcast should be thinking about that. And pushing those those good messages, educating folks, thanking them when they vote, the right way, and so that's part of it. But it's new technology. It's I have a number of colleagues who are still asking really basic questions, trying to understand it, and we got to help them with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just add a little anecdotal evidence that I have from my own walk of life. And I have family, friends, and so forth. Some are Democrats. Guess what? They trade crypto. They invest in crypto. And for them, it's not a political issue, but I think certain people have made it a political issue. But even before all of these things, I know, a lot of different people just investing with crypto in one way or the other, NFTs and so forth. And Some are building with it. So to your point, it's not a partisan issue. It's a bipartisan thing, and we need to come together and figure this out.
Absolutely, yeah, and again, the data I've seen really shows that it's evenly split. It's not like the people who own crypto are one party or another. It's very evenly split, and I think that's worth noting too.
Mm-hmm. Now I got to ask about stablecoin regulations. People want to know, we got the market structure, made it out the house, but when stablecoin regulations, because there's a lot of companies now issuing stablecoins.
No, we need to get this done. There's very good bipartisan support for it, even among folks like Maxine Waters, who's the Democratic ranking member. That she said they're very close to getting it done, and so I think that's one that again I feel very confident we're going to get that done in this Congress, either before or after the election, because there's a lot of good bipartisan support for it. But everything we're hearing and our work behind the scenes tells us that we're very close on it, and and I think hopefully it's a package where we get FIT21, the digital assets market structure bill, we get stablecoin, we get safe banking, and a SAB 121 fix. Those are the things that I think together, could get a lot of good bipartisan support.
Mm. Congressman, I'm going to throw a question at you that just came to mind, and it's okay if you can't give me all the details because it's complex. Do you think we will see voting and campaign donations on the blockchain? And I know maybe in the next 10 years, right? Where we know a lot of things are going to run on blockchain, but we may see that.
I think we certainly will. You have a number of candidates who accept Bitcoin for contributions. I think as we move further along on that, it's going to be a little easier on the campaign finance side. That's kind of one of the complaints I hear is, we got to get our campaign finance rules and regulations to catch up with where people are. But that's going to certainly be, it's inevitably going to happen a lot more.
Yeah. It's interesting because to your point, like there's a whole other world with campaign finance reform and all that stuff. So we'll have to figure it out, but at least we have a solution. And I think once the infrastructure is there, we can, test it out. Congressman, always a pleasure. Thank you for all the great work you're doing. And I hope to have you back on. Maybe, I don't know, soon we hear from Kamala Harris some good news, but thank you so much.
No, as soon as I have any, I'll text you, I'll reach out and let you know too, but would love to come back and talk about what I hope will be a good, sensible, moderate path of a reset from the Harris campaign and and Vice President Harris. So, well, I'll let you know. Absolutely.
Awesome.